Hey Robin, this is Brent. So I'm just got your tire here. One thing that I did go through as I went through your history, and I just unsmoothed some of the divisions on this, because the more divisions you have, it's going to be more difficult to UV. So I try to UV it when it's lower, and then either smooth and render or smooth it after. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So what you got so far. All right, first thing that I do whenever I'm starting UVs is I would open up my UV toolkit, obviously, and also turn on this checker pattern here, and then I turn on the texture dimming so that I can see what's going on a little bit better. All right, so let's see what we got. Right now it looks like you did a planar projection down. So what I often do to get started is, one thing, I would delete all this history. See all this transformation history over here? Whenever your asset's good to go and ready, you should freeze the transformations and delete the history. And let's call this tire. All right. So first thing I want to do is just do a planar projection down to get rid of all the seams in the object. So go to UV, and then I just do camera based. And the reason I do that is just so I know exactly what's a shell and what's not. So this outer tire is one piece of geo, one continuous piece of geo. So you can see every time there's a white line, that is a shell separation. So first thing I want to do is I want to figure out some edge loops that would work to cut this thing the first time. So being a tire, I would try to find this little edge loop here. So I'll just go through and select all these. Okay, so now I've got that whole first edge selected, because it's kind of like that entire plane is on one side. So I'd want to make like this a plane, this top piece of plane, and then the other side of plane too. So once I have that selection like that, I'll go down to cut and sew, and I'll cut that edge. And then I'm just going to go to the marking menu, go to my UVs, which is just right click and drag to the right. I'm going to drag or click on a single part of that shell, and then I'm just going to hold control, right click, to UV shell. Looks like I still have, let me go find the missing edge loop. Here it is. All right, so I'll do that again, cut it, and go to UV, click a single shell. Okay, so we got that first piece. Now, one of the things that I always do when I'm doing unfolds is I'm basically just using this unfold tool and this regular unfold with a little modification. So I go to modify, and then go down and look for unfold, and then hit the option box. And what I do is I usually use legacy, and then I turn on pin UVs, and I pin by selected UVs. That means any UV that I have in my selection, when I use this tool, it will do nothing to that UV, but it'll unwrap everything around it. So if I selected just half of these and I hit unfold, it's just going to unfold half of the ones that I had selected. But what I usually do is I click on one UV and then I just hit unfold. That way, when you're doing this, depending on the shape, sometimes it'll come out really good, but you have to it's kind of based on its area of influence. So you just have to mess with it a little bit to get it to work. See if I move that in. So it looks like that it's going to have a little trouble with this one. So what I would do at this point, sometimes I go straight to the UV tool, is the unfold tool, I mean. So click on the shell that you're working on. And yeah, just select that entire shell, turn on the UV or the unfold tool, and it'll bring up this little like look brush looking thing, and if you hold down B and drag, you can make it bigger or smaller. So I just make it so that it covers the entire shell region, and then you just left click. Oh, it looks like you have manifold geometry here. Let me try to fix that real quick. All right, go up to mesh, clean up. Let's look. Faces with more than 4 sides, concave, faces with holes, and let's try that. I'm not sure how much that actually affected it. Okay, let's try it now. All right, so yeah, if you're having, when you first get into modeling, you'll probably have a lot more manifold problems. So yeah, just keep an eye on that because things won't work properly. So, okay, let's try that again. I'm just gonna try to, no, okay. So we're just gonna select that shell. We're gonna go to unfold tool again. And it just beautifully lays it out. Most of the time, the unfold tool does exactly what you want, depending on, you know, what the model shape is and everything like that. So I'd say that this piece is done. So we need to move on to this round area on the outside. So let's get started there. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to cut off the other side quickly, and I'm just going to speed it up. All right, so we got this other edge loop selected to cut off this other side. So let's cut that. Let's see that if I got them all. Click UV shell. Yes, we did. All right. So the same thing again. I'm just going to use the unfold tool directly. Excellent. Laid it out really well. All right, just going to make these the same size for now. We can rescale it later. Okay, so this main shape here, the issue that I see here is that there's a lot of really big shapes, so that if I laid this out as one piece, I feel like that I would get a lot of stretching, but we're gonna just try it first to see how that goes. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look for an edge loop that goes all the way across. So because this is a cylinder, you need one break in the shell so that it can loop back over. So I see one here that I think will work. Okay. All right, first thing, I'm just gonna drag this out of here so I can see the UVs outside. All right, so it's this one here. So I'm gonna just select, like, I double click that edge loop and it goes all the way around the model. One way that you can avoid that is that if you click in the shell, that same edge loop, you'll select that entire edge loop just within that shell. Just a little tip that's pretty useful. So that it doesn't, you can just go in and deselect the other ones, but whatever. So now that I have this edge loop selected here, I'm going to cut that edge loop, and let me do a single unfold and see what we get. Okay, same issue. So let's just go straight to the unfold tool and see how result we get. The unfold tool is now just extremely good. So I use it like pretty much all the time now. UVs did not used to be that easy. So there definitely is a little bit of stretching along each one of those little ridges, but I think that it might actually be all right. So one thing you can consider too is that since this is a really long cylinder, your texel density is pretty low. Generally, what you want is to try to take up as much space in this tile as possible, so that when you're using 2K, you're using as much 2K real estate as possible. So what you could consider is cutting another section of this to make the shape more of a square, so that you could take up more space on this card or this UV tile. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. But the thing is the more seams that you make in the mesh, you have to consider those seams later. Because you have to say, oh, I need to make sure that it's not tiling in that area. Or I mean, there's not a seam break in my texture. So you just paint that over, and when you're working in Painter, it's really not a big deal. Don't be afraid to have more seams in your mesh. All right, so one thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Arrange and Layout, and then Layout right here. Now the reason it got crazy is because we haven't properly laid out the UVs for this here. So what I'm going to do real quick is go to Modify, and then under my layout, I'm going to hit the option box. And I usually use this Legacy. So there's two options you can do. You can do single or multiple objects, which means it'll take that entire mesh and it'll put them all into one shell. Or you can do per object overlapping. And what this does is it will it'll only lay out the objects you have selected into that shell. And this is whenever you're doing a multiple UVing workflow, you wanna do that. So let's check our Texel Density here. It looks like the side of these tires are a little bit too small. All right, sorry about that. I had a crash. I had to go and lay these out real quick because I didn't save it on it, unfortunately. So I just went in and quickly did it again. It looks a little different this time because I actually found another smooth node in here, or a smooth history. So I just turned that down to make it even faster to unfold this. Okay, let's go to the unfold tool. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to double click on this one, and then I'm going to isolate select it again. And I'm going to turn off these UVs. Maybe that was causing issues. All right, so I'm going to cut this now. All right, I'm going to save before I unfold this. Let me turn off isolate select. Maybe that was one of the issues. All right, so now I've got this shell, and let's just unfold it. Now this is, oh, I see. So why that didn't select that other piece of the other side is because I don't think that you combine these together. Okay, yeah. So one thing to keep in mind when you're modeling is to make sure that you can see here there's a scene split. So it looks like in the model these were never combined. So let's just go ahead and combine these real quick. All right, so now we got this again. I'm just gonna save this. All right. That is strange. It's a little weird that it's smoothing down. That is really weird. Okay, I won't go over model cleanup or anything like that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this other shell over here, and we're going to make a cut in the same spot. Now I'm going to select the first edge just so I can see where it's at on the shell, and then I'm just going to double click it so that it'll just select it for me and maintain it just on that shell. All right, so let's select that shell, and then I'm just going to go to Fold Tool. I guess I'm non-manifold geometry here. Alright, so let me just do this cleanup again. Alright. And it's unwrapping like this because it's like on a side plane. What I want to have it do is actually be attached here so that these unwrap together. It's not a huge deal. So what I'll do is I'm just going to cut off the other side in about the same area. And then I'm going to select the cylinder so it's just by itself. Unfold that so it's flatter. And then this one, what it's trying to do is it's trying to make that cylinder shape, or I mean that circle shape. So what I'll do is I'm just gonna sew these so that it just does the side. And then I'll do that for this one too. So I'm just selecting the edges, and it's gonna select the other side as well and sew them. And oops. Let me a little wonky. That's a little off. What you can do is a little bit of manual work too. And I'm just hitting B, and that's the soft selection. And you can just modify the UVs a little bit that way. All right, so now we got your rims done, and then you just got these like little, I think it's this like bolts or something. This one's a little off too, so this is the inside rim. So what you could do is go in and do a little bit of manual tweaking to it to make it more uniform. Not a big deal though. Something like that. Okay. All right, this last piece, honestly what I would do is, I'm not sure what you're using this for, if it's for a game or whatever, but don't be afraid to not combine objects. It makes it like a little bit harder to isolate stuff. It's not a big deal, and I mean it totally depends on what your pipeline is. You can combine them after you're finished if you wanted to, but before the UVing stage, I tend to not do that just because selecting them is a little harder. And okay, what we could actually do is just separate it. So now that we got these bolts, I'm guessing these are all the same size. So I'm just going to go up to display, heads up display, and poly count. So my guess is all these are the same. Good. So whenever they're all the same, it's easy to transfer attributes over to something else. So let's isolate this real quick. I hit B to turn off soft select, and then just make 2 cuts like that. And let's just unfold. And we'll also do layout just to get them off of each other. Okay. We're gonna do a Texel density pass at the end. All right, so now we have this bolt. So I'm gonna isolate select that. All right, just gotta find an area where this grid is changed. So I'd probably take this piece. Let's cut that. Unfold. And we also got to, since it's a cylinder, we need to have a place for it to unfold from. Now you can approach this two ways. You can two ways. You can make all these bolts the same, or you can make them separate, and that's going to be entirely up to you how you want to do it. So you could have a greater textile density if all the bolts were sharing the same UV space. But if you wanted all of them to be different, they need to be on separate UV spaces. So when I transfer the attribute of the UVs, it's going to just automatically put them all on top of each other. You can do that if you wanted to just have a greater textile density, but you're going to lose variation. So for now, we're just going to make them all different. Okay, and I wouldn't be too finicky with these, they're so small. All right, so now that we have that one done, let's save this again. What we need to do is transfer, so all these other ones, we don't want to lay out these all one by one. So let's go in and select all the bolts. I can't remember what the selection order is because we have tools at work that are a little different. So let's go to edit mesh. No, just mesh. Go to mesh, transfer attributes. Let's try topology. Oop, wrong order. Okay, so I need to select this one first. First, let's do isolate select. So this is, which one do we lay out? This one, okay. So let's select the rest of these. I think this should work. Ah, looks like you'd only do one at a time. Yeah, you only do one at a time. No big deal. Man, I don't feel like it's transferring right. Ah. Let's just try it. Whoops. All right, so now we've got all these laid out. I'm just going to do a layout. So it laid them all out on the same spot. So what you can do to not do that is go up to, oh, whoops. Just be in here. Modify, layout, single. Whoa. I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll just do a little manual fixing here. Honestly, majority of the time, whenever something's not working right, like in an automated way, you gotta just gotta get in there and do it by hand. I mean, the tools have actually never been this good since I've been using them. So I'm pretty happy with the current state compared to where we were. I mean, laying out UVs used to be, I'd never actually even used Maya most of the time. I would use 3D Coat because they had a really good unfold system, which they still do actually. The only reason I started using Maya more is because the tools got good enough that I could use it, and having to use one less application is always good. All right. Let's try to lay these out again. Okay. So now those are approximately the same scale. There is actually a texel density check in here. I forget where it is, but it'll try to scale everything the same. All right. We won't worry about it right now, though. I'm running over on time a little bit. Okay. All right, so you've got your rim here. Let's lay this rim out. And to move over to another shell, you can just hit transfer and then transform by 1. And that'll do that. Oh, what is this? Didn't see this before. Where is that? I think there's like a little piece of double geo here. Oh, weird. Let's hide this. Looks like there's a... All right, let me... I think there's some invisible geo here. Yeah. Let's delete that. Okay. I just hid those and unhid them again. Oh. I think everything's back. All right, I'm just going to delete the history. Let's move this outside. Okay. So now you've got your tire here. And I have to rescale these again to their... The textile density is more important when it's the same object. Alright, so let's lay that out. And then we'll do a move to the shell. And that looks like about the textile density you're going to get for that. Alright. So to make it a little easier, let's recombine this. I just have a little button for it. Call this rim. Actually, I'll select this inside rim too. Combine that. Combine. Rim. Tire. And then I think these are all bolts. Just combine those together. Bolts. And then I have all these transform nodes here, and that's because I need to delete my history. Be in the habit of doing that. Just keeps your scene clean. All right, so this is your layout. And if you need them to be all in one tile, like say you're doing this for games or something, you could just, again, go in here, select layout, select them all, and then just hit layout. It'll put into one tile. Okay, I'm just gonna do a really quick insert, something I didn't mention in the video previously. So whenever you're trying to match the textile density of things that are in your shell, so this tire is a different textile density than the rest of this tire over here. So what you need to do is you need to say you want to match the rest of the tire with this shell. So select this shell, go under the, let's see, it's under transform. Yeah. Under transform, you'll see this thing that says Texel Density PX unit. So to get, you just hit, I clicked on get to get the Texel density of this object. And then I'm going to select the other shells and I'm going to set it to the same density. Now they all are the same density. And I can do it the other way too. Like say this is big. I'm going to get it, go to the other shells, and then set. And then we just go to the arrange layout, and boom, they're all the same Texel density.